Deion Sanders entering year 2 with Colorado. All eyes still on Coach Prime, of course. After a 3-0 red-hot start last year, the Buffs finished the season losing 6 straight to go 4-8 on the season as a whole. Now, Colorado enters a new conference, or an old conference if you go back, the Big 12. Heavy hitter opponents like Utah, Oklahoma State, and Coach Prime knows the expectations for him are sky high.
I'm judged on a different scale. My wins are totally different than your wins. Your wins, you just judge in football. I can't win 9 games and our GPA suffers. Our GPA can't be high, but we lose another 8 games. We can't not go and grab high school players and you got a bunch of guys in the portal, out of the portal that's getting incarcerated. My wins are different. We have to win in every area. That's the way we're judged. And I'm cool with that because we come a little different.
I've listened to that sound multiple times now as, Heather and Paul are next to each other with this good. I still am not exactly sure what Deion Sanders is saying, so maybe you guys could help me out with that. That's not the point, though. The point is here now, and Heather, I'm going to go to you first. How likely is Deion to get Colorado eventually to a college football playoff?
Well, I'm glad you said the word eventually because it's going to take a while. It's certainly not going to happen this year. This year, they're not even a contender, in my opinion, for the Big 12 conference because they've got so many issues. And I think it's going to take a while because let's start with the transfer portal. 41 players in, I want to say, more than any other team in the FBS. 53 players out. Look, how are you developing chemistry within your team, within your locker room, when you have that much of just disarray in terms of your roster? And then you've got the on-field issues, right? 52 sacks on Deion Sanders, 124th in the nation in scoring defense. I mean, there are real issues on both sides of the ball that they have to fix. And to me, that just doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, let me piggyback on that for a second. Anyone asking whether Deion Sanders and Colorado are close to the playoffs simply doesn't understand the reality of the road. They're not going to the playoffs this year, and I'm not sure Deion Sanders is ever going to get them to the playoffs because I don't think he has the patience to stay at Colorado long enough. There's so many misconceptions out there. Deion Sanders is the best salesman I've ever seen. I personally love the guy and for what he stands for. But the program looking out has a ridiculously inflated view of itself. I heard Deion Sanders, who's a fabulous quarterback, say last week, "We are everyone's Super Bowl." Deion, you are not. You are an easy win nowadays. You got off to a phenomenal start last year, beating a couple of mediocre teams that had big names. And quite frankly, you haven't done anything since other than crash and burn. So I know that the media loves this story. We fall all over ourselves. But Colorado isn't important in college football. Deion Sanders is. He's a standalone person. He's one of the most charismatic people we've ever seen. But Colorado is nothing. They don't matter. They're irrelevant in the big picture of college football.
Do you think he will eventually take all these players that he's accumulated through the transfer portal and beyond and get to a college football playoff berth?
Shay, to answer your question, I think it depends on how long Deion Sanders stays at Colorado. If he's there for 5 years, I think he will eventually get them to the college football playoff. Now, to address some of that ether that Paul Finebaum just directed at Deion Sanders, Colorado is everybody's Super Bowl. The reason that they are the Super Bowl is because all eyes are on them. I still remember Dan Lanning telling his locker room that Colorado was there for clicks and they're there for wins, right? They knew that they went out there with a vengeance and they did blow them out, but they played harder in that game than they played in any other game of the season. So if Shedeur in his mind is saying that, hey, Colorado is everyone's Super Bowl because they think they're so great, I can kind of see where Paul is going, but he's saying in the sense of everyone wants to beat them into the ground because they do have the #1 quarterback in the nation, and they do have the #1 wide receiver and cornerback in the nation in Travis Hunter, and they do have the biggest personality at the head coach position in Deion Sanders. So Paul, yes, people do know Deion. but it's also because he is a great coach and he's a Hall of Fame corner. But you know his players, and what he is doing in the portal is bringing in guys that have a like mindset to him and what he wants to accomplish. He is trying to find the right guys from the past 10 years of terrible recruiting that Colorado has had. And I believe if he can get Colorado to the college football playoff, it will be a great thing for college football, not just for the eyes, but also being able to take a program and take them to new heights. Colorado has not won a conference championship since before Deion Sanders was born. They are relevant in this space. Will they win 9, 10, 11 games? I don't know. But I'm not going to try to kick them while they're down at 4-8. If they win purely 6 games this year, I call that a success.
Well, Shay, let's see if Stephen A. Smith and The Rock and every other important entertainment figure in the world shows up this year. My guess is they won't, because it's not the in thing to do. Last year it was, and by the way, I was as guilty as you were. We obsessed over Deion, but this year it's a totally different situation. They're in a different league. They're not on Broadway any longer, and I'm frankly a whole lot more interested in what Texas is doing, and Georgia, and Oregon, and Washington, and Ohio State than I am about a mediocre program out in the middle of nowhere.
Go ahead, Robert.
So, Paul, you thought that last year when Deion went to a team that was utterly the worst team in all of college football, you were interested in them then, but now they win 4 games, which is more games than they won the previous year. They have the potential number one pick in the draft and the potential number 2 pick in the draft, and you're not as interested in them this year? I think there's a lot of people out there who want Deion to lose. Shay, when you said you don't understand what he's saying, how he's judged by different metrics, he's basically saying that he can't go out there and win 10 games, but his programs is in the mud or in the gutter when it comes to everything else he's trying to build. He's trying to build men. I don't care if he wins 4 games again this year. I believe in what the foundation that he is trying to lay in these guys' lives. And to say that he is irrelevant is probably one of the worst takes I've heard today.